Good morning, everyone. Looks like a full house, maybe a few seats scattered about. If you need to find a seat, please take a seat. Welcome to CPhI Middle East Africa 2019. My name is Adam Anderson. I'm the Group Director for Informa Markets Pharma Portfolio. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome you not only to CPhI this morning, but also to introduce our keynote. Our keynote this morning is His Excellency Dr. Amin Hussain Al-Amiri, Assistant Undersecretary of Public Health Policy and Licensing Sector in UAE Ministry of Health and Prevention. Dr. Al-Amiri got his PhD and Master's in Science in Medical and Science in 2003 from the Faculty of Medicine at Aberdeen University in Scotland in the UK. He is responsible for the Drug, Empowerment and Health Compliance, Organizations, Licenses and Advertisement and Public Health Policy Departments in the UAE Ministry of Health and Prevention. Please join me in giving a warm CPhI welcome to Dr. Al-Amiri.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure and honor. It's my profound honor to be here, CPhI, for the second year in the most beautiful city in United Arab Emirates, the Abu Dhabi. Today, I will be speaking about the healthcare and pharmaceutical continuum as an highlight across the region. But before that, I'll try to take you with me in a sort of journey to find out what's going on worldwide. We come to the region, and then we will stop by United Arab Emirates. I will start my presentation in a simple question. What is the nightmare for the governments in terms of health? Who knows the response, the reply? Do you know what's the nightmare for the governments concerning the health? Cardiovascular disorder, diabetes, hypertension, immunological disorders, communicable diseases, ending by aging and mental health. Those are the nightmare for the governments. This will lead with a negative impact, if it is not being treated well and controlled well, on health, wealth, productivity, and performance of the people at each single country, is it or not? If you have your employees in the government, which either they have one of the cardiovascular diseases or immunological disorders or hypertension, for sure their productivity will be less than someone who is healthy, controlled by himself and the health services in his country. There was a statement from the United Nations says that the negative economical burden on the governments in 2015 due to the NCDs, which is non-communicable diseases, counted for $835 billion US. 2015 was $835 US. Expected to reach by 2023, $1,023 billion US. 2023, $1,023 US. Despite that, the NCDs will affect not only the economical burden, brings economical burden on the governments, but it affects 55% of the productivity of the inhabitants of each single country. Let us find out what's going on worldwide. As I said, the most important is that we have to invest on a human being as a main capital at each country. And therefore, we have to provide them with the state-of-art services, state-of-art hospitals, accredited hospitals by either JCI or Canadian or Australian. We have to provide them with the highest technology. And the most important for you as professional people at the field of pharma industry is the most innovative drugs which has been approved recently from either FDA or EMA to make sure that their illnesses will be well controlled, their illnesses will be treated with these innovative drugs. Despite that, if you will do that in your country, it will be having an impact in economics. Why? Because if you will have a strong strategy in your country to support the pharma industry and the medical infrastructure, then you will be able to support new innovations, new technologies, R&D in your country, the pharma industry, and it supports the economic in your country. They both will lead for health and wealth of your community, and this is a sort of release of a burden on a government, that how they will be able to take care of the health of their inhabitants, their people, and they have to invest on them. By the way, the investment, as Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President, Prime Minister, ruler of Dubai, said, the investment is not to have towers and buildings and factories. The main investment is on the human capital. That's the main investment. If you will invest in human, then you will succeed. That's the sole main requirement for the success and prosperity of each single country. And then, therefore, health and wealth of your people, it's very important. Now, to control those two elements, you need to be connected with the international organizations to make sure that the most innovative drugs could be introduced in your country. And this needs a lot of efforts from the governments and from the pharma industry to have a sort of strategic partnership to share together and to bring those medicines to the UAE or to any of the countries. Those new medicines, it has been stated that within the coming few years, there are 7,000 new medicines development globally. It's taking place. Mainly is being concentrated on the cancer cases, which is the oncology line, almost 1,813 different molecules. Then comes the neurological disorders, mental health, infection disease, such as HIV/AIDS, hepatitis B and C, and the rest of the diseases. Those will be having for sure an impact on 4 major elements. The main thing is the patient. If today the patient has an access to the most innovative medicine, that's the happiness of the patient, and that makes the patient happy. And this will support one main thing in your country, medical tourism. Today we have many patients coming from abroad to the UAE because the innovative medicines are available in the UAE as a second or the third country after the approval by FDA or EMA. The patient's happiness that they don't need to go abroad to take their treatment. The most innovative medicines available inside the country. UAE is one of the most accelerated drug registration policy having, that we do register in 2 or 3 months any of innovative drugs approved by FDA or EMA. Despite that, it supports the economics. Why? If today we can say 75 of the most international pharma industry, they have the regional scientific offices in UAE. 95% of them, they have the logistic hub, supporting 41 countries from Dubai or Abu Dhabi itself only. This is a great support to the economics. Those pharma companies, through the scientific offices, they spend 3.1 billion dirhams on an annual basis on R&D. That's a great support for our economics. And then healthcare system. Today, if you have a hospital, a healthcare center, one-day care surgery, if you have an access to those innovative technologies and innovative drugs, then you will be able to have the patients from inside and outside the country, and you will be able to provide the highest standards of quality of care through your premises or through your hospitals. And then society. Today we have many people which they came in to the UAE and they had illnesses which they were not able even to treat their illnesses in their own country. They had the support from our government, either by health insurance scheme or program, or by the charities for the people whom they don't have health insurance scheme, or the people which their scheme doesn't cover the extra cost because those drugs are very expensive. And therefore, the health expenditure in this region is very high. because of the high tech and the high facilities. Do you know that almost 86% of our governmental and the private hospitals is being accredited by JCI and Canadian accreditation body? This was the order from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum that by 2021, 100% of the hospitals has to be accredited. We exceeded the expectation of the federal government. Now we have many of one-day care surgery hospitals are accredited by JCI, and we were the #1 country in the world, as per the statement of Ms. Paula, the chairman of the JCI. In January 2018, UAE is #1 worldwide, outside United States of America, in number of the hospitals accredited by JCI. We are #1. Again, we were #1 in number of the laboratories, medical laboratories accredited. We were #1 worldwide that the complementary medicine center was accredited by JCI, which it means that this is a comprehensive healthcare services in UAE. We support all the services. It do complete and complements each other. Therefore, it should be a sort of complement program between different sectors. This led that the region, East Mediterranean region, through UAE and the rest of the countries in the region, had one of the highest percentage or prevalence in the health expenditure. This is a sort of global overview of the health expending on the pharmaceutical, as a pharmaceutical scale and the total health expenditure. Although in the Northern America, the growth was almost 4.3%. Our region is 4.2%, which is those two highest regions, by the way. Although there is 7.5%, which is as a transaction economics, those are the emerging countries. Those countries like Belarus, Estonia, some of those countries, which is emerging countries, the health expenditure were one of the highest worldwide. Despite that, if we will talk about the pharma or pharmaceutical expenditure, our region was the highest worldwide. Our region, which is the green one, which is the MENA region, it was almost, the growth was 17 to 36% in overall. And this was between 2015 and 2020. Then comes the EU, which is the European Union, European Union, and then the Northern America. The health expenditure depends upon the facilities being provided among the healthcare services, hospitals, one-day care surgeries. In total, 17 to 18% of the total health expenditure worldwide goes to the pharma industry as a pharma expenditure in the region, or I can say worldwide. But that depends not on the normal business. It do depends upon the new molecules which is being approved by FDA or EMA, and how much each single country were able, through their fast-track drug registration policy, to introduce those molecules in their country. In fact, worldwide, there were almost 240 new molecules registered between 2010 to 2018. 134 molecules registered in MENA region. But out of it, 115 was launched through the Ministry of Health of those countries in the region, and 106 was included on the insurance scheme. If you look into the percentage, within a couple of few years, this is one of the fastest enrollment of the new molecules and the insurance schemes, which it means that the patients have then access to it. But let us talk about our beautiful country, the United Arab Emirates. If you will look into the UAE, in fact, UAE was one of the highest in terms of the registration, access to the new molecules, enrollment at the insurance scheme. UAE were almost the highest among different countries in the region. Then comes Lebanon and then Saudi Arabia. But this needs support, a help from the government. And what's that support? You cannot provide the new molecules to your patients unless, if your Ministry of Health has a strong policy, the most fast accelerated policy for the drug registration. And again, UAE were number one, in fact, which is at the bottom, which is we had time of registration, almost 3 quarters, almost sometimes less than 3 weeks, and the enrollment of those new molecules at the health insurance programs. And those new molecules, in fact, consist of different drugs, mainly with the oncology line, which is on the blue color. Then comes the anti-infection or antiviral drugs. Then comes the respiratory and central nerve system, and also the diabetes, which is very common in this region. And here it shows very clearly that all new molecules for different type of the diseases, we are below the line, which is one of the fastest to introduce those drugs, those new molecules in our system. But to introduce that, you need a support from a federal government. How this support could be converted to the services? This will be converted to the services by how much in terms of percentage from the total budget of your government is being allocated for the healthcare services. Let us go now from the global to the region and now talk about the UAE a little bit more. The total UAE budget 2019 was 60.3 billion dirhams. Out of it, 8.6 was allocated for healthcare services. Although this is 8.6%, and the increment of almost 17.3% from the last year, but this is a sort of integrated support to the system. You know why it's integrated? Because if you will look into the total, out of total budget, 42.2% was for the social development and the social benefits, which the education and the social protection and the health, it's out of it. Despite that, the infrastructure was taken, again, the highest budget out of the total budget of the government, which stands for 37.5%. What it means, the infrastructure, number of the new hospitals, number of the new health centers, number of the new diagnostic centers. Indirectly, a big portion of the federal budget goes to the Ministry of Health. It's not the 8.6%, which is almost 5.2 billion or 5.21 billion dirhams, but the other budget which was allocated for the social support, for the infrastructure, indirectly comes to the health, which it means the total budget which was allocated for the government, for the healthcare services in the government of United Arab Emirates exceeds 8.6%. This led to the huge success in the pharma industry and the healthcare investment. I do believe 5 years back, I used to say that we as a government, Ministry of Health and Prevention, Dubai Health Authority, Abu Dhabi, and the Presidential Office of His Highness, we run 52% of the hospitals in the country. And 48% is the private. Now it's the opposite. The private almost runs 63% of the total coverage of the UAE, and almost 37% is the government. And this is a great evidence for you that how much we supported the competition of the private sector to compete the government, how much we are supportive to the private sector and to have a strategic partnership with them. Here, if this private sector is strong, then you will become more stronger, because there will be healthy competition between both the private and the government. And therefore, we gave a chance to the private sector to come up. Let me give you an examples. You have Cleveland, Abu Dhabi, one of the beautiful examples. You have Seoul National University Hospital in Ras Al Khaimah, which they run Sheikh Khalifa Hospital in Ras Al Khaimah. You have a Global Health, Sweden. That's, by the way, it was South Korea. The Swedish company, Global Health, they run 4 hospitals. Sheikh Khalifa Hospital, Ajman, Masfoud Hospital, Rashid Diabetic Center, and also maternity hospital in Ajman. That's a good examples. We have American Hospital. They have an affiliation with Mayo Clinic. We have many other good examples. This is a good evidence that how much we are supportive to the private sector. This leaded that the health investment forecast, it's almost, we have an increment of the double. Almost it was 15.8 billion in almost 2019, forecasted or expected to reach 32 billion, almost double by 2027. And this is a sort of evidence that the growth is very high, almost close to 65%. But the similar, it's being implemented on the pharma industry, which reflected to the pharma expenditure. I believe I was talking to Sheikh Hayyan during the inauguration of the CPhI today. 5 years back, we had 15 factories. I said, Your Highness, today we have 23 factories. 8 factories in 5 years. On the pipeline, there is more. We are expecting to reach 32 by 2021. And that's not easy number, 32 factories in a country with 10 million population. Do you know why? Because the foreign companies had then trust to have their base here, because the strategy, the policy, the regulation supports their investment, and we allow them to have 100% ownership of their projects, their investment in the free zone areas, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah, or wherever. This is one of the examples. As I said, we have now 23 factories. By mid-2019, we have 73 by 2018, 73, by the way, we reached 75 scientific offices. And those scientific offices, they spent 3.1 billion dirham on R&D on the annual basis. Despite that, we as a government, we have to not only encourage, but to support the existing factories. What we did on that scale, what we did is that we encouraged the international pharma companies to have a strategic agreement with the local factories to produce innovative medicine in UAE. The first company signed an MOU with New Pharma, which is available here, Merck Serono, Pfizer, MSD, GSK, Abbott, Roche, and the rest of the companies. So far, 7 MOUs were signed in the UAE. We do produce 106 different SKUs of the drug in UAE. And those drugs, by the way, it goes for 41 countries from Abu Dhabi or Dubai itself, goes from this beautiful country. And now we have 25 international distribution hub, and they do cover 41 countries from those distribution hub, which is based mainly in Dubai. This is one of the examples for the fast-track accelerated drug registration. We do register drugs with different molecules, different companies, almost in 2 months, maximum 2.5 months. If you file by ECTD, Electronic Common Technical Dossier file, submitted to the ministry, everything is online. Importation is online, you pay online, exportation is online, registration is online, classification is online, renewal of your factory, your scientific office is online, licensing of scientists, doctors, pharmacists is online, everything is online. Tomorrow, you don't need to see us. Everything is online, you do while you are at your office. Despite that, there was a study done by the PwC to find out the comparison between what is being implemented in UAE with the rest of the countries in UAE. And they found that why 95% of those companies, they prefer to be in UAE. Do you know why? Strong infrastructure, legislation, lifestyle in this beautiful country is completely different. Who lives in UAE cannot live in the rest of the countries in the region. And that's fact. Not because I'm proud that I'm Emirati, but this is fact. I have many people which they left UAE and they came back. They say, we can't leave UAE. And therefore, strong infrastructure, legislation would support your investment, 100% ownership, open door policy, transparency, and you have a great support from the federal government. Sheikh Hayyan was saying a couple of minutes back, our palaces are open to receive anyone. You can go and receive any of the sheikhs. They receive you and you can give them their comments. They even receive your comments, they review your comments through the social media, through your mobile. This is the most transparent country in the world. And this was the example. This was done from the neutral agency, which is the PwC. Despite that, as I said, those scientific offices, they spent 3.1 billion dirhams, but there are a huge number of the programs, as the training programs, educational programs, was conducted for the region. A new investment. I don't want to go into the details, but it's a new high investment of those pharma companies on training the people from the region through their office in the UAE. Not even that, we gone much beyond. We concentrated on the clinical trials. Before talking about the clinical trials, I'm quite sure you know that the highest revenue of specialties worldwide, it's computing and electronics. You know, about IBM, different type of softwares, Bill Gates, the highest. Then comes the healthcare and pharma industry. But in terms of the R&D, the pharma industry and medical industry is the highest, 11% of the total revenue worldwide. The medical sector and the pharma industry is the highest. Let us talk about the United Arab Emirates. In fact, in 2016, this study was done by the PwC, and they found that 57 clinical trials were performed in UAE, similar to 57 in Egypt and 48 in Saudi Arabia. But if you will do a small, easy calculation, the number of the clinical trial per 1 million population, 6.2 was the percentage of UAE, which means 57 clinical trials out of 9.8 or 10 million population is 6.2%. And 1.8 was in Saudi Arabia and 0.5 was in Saudi Arabia. This is a strong indication that we as a Ministry of Health and Prevention and different health authorities were very much supportive to the pharma industry and medical industry to perform and put their efforts in performing and having their clinical trials in United Arab Emirates. We were doing clinical trial phase 4. We came down to phase 3, and now we have some of the cases we are doing phase 2, which is very complicated. We have some of the cases we are doing clinical trial phase 2. But as I was saying, the support for the industry. You as an investment, what do you need from us? That's the second question. You need we to be a facilitator, support you, help you, support your investment, solve your problems, answer to your questions. And therefore, we meant to have the most e-registration or e-technique system. As I said, everything is electronic. Therefore, the electronic system will support your industry. And I will just talk about two very beautiful or strong examples. One of them, which it supports the pharmacovigilance. PV stands for pharmacovigilance. UAE Radar is a smart application. You can download it in your mobile. It's the first mobile application, advanced mobile application. Mobile application was there worldwide, in Switzerland, in UK, but this was an advanced one who helped us, our MHRA in UK. This was launched in 2017. I was personally giving a presentation in Geneva with the MHRA as a joint presentation announcing UAE Radar, a first smart mobile application, advanced mobile application that you can talk to us, the individuals and health professionals. It's in Arabic and in English. It's for health professionals and also for the individuals, the patients, or the family members. They can report the adverse reaction reports. They can look into the adverse reaction reports on the website. Any reports comes from the health professionals or the people to us. It goes to Uppsala or to the WHO, which they call it Vigiflu, in a few seconds, which it means the member of Uppsala, which is 158 if I'm not mistaken, 158 countries could be notified from UAE through this mobile application in few seconds. And that's a great success and a support for the pharmacovigilance program worldwide. It's not UAE only. It enhances the quality, allows reporting very easily, and allowing more proactive between different countries and the health professionals directly. The second state-of-art application was Hayat. Hayat is an Arabic name called the life. This is the first mobile application for organ transplant. This was launched in January 2019 by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President Prime Minister, ruler of Dubai. This is a mobile application. You can download it. So far, since then, we have almost 934 registered donors that they accepted the registration to donate their organs at the case of the brain death. Since then, since we had a new law for organ transplant, we had 17 cadavers. Cadavers, it means deceased donors, brain death donors, and we were able, by the help of Allah, the God, the Holy God, to save 62 lives of the patients. We had 5 heart transplants in UAE, from Cleveland, Abu Dhabi. We had more than 7 liver transplant, 7 lung, and just name it, kidney and pancreas, and cornea is done on the daily basis. This was done with the help of the Kingdom of the Saudi Arabia at the beginning. Now we are self-sufficient, self-dependent on the organ transplant in UAE. All what has been said cannot be implemented in any of the countries unless if you have the base, the infrastructure. And the main infrastructure to support the health services is the legislation, the regulation, which it supports the presence of the international company here, supports the R&D, supports the organ transplant, supports the transparency, supports the pharmacovigilance, supports the investment, supports the strategic partnership between the private and the government, and supports the registration, and supports even the new technologies, the new innovations to be implemented in UAE. I don't want to go into the details, but a huge number of new laws which was approved either by His Highness, the President of the country, Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, or through the Prime Minister from the Cabinet, Majlis al-Wazara. I gave you 2 questions, one at the middle of my presentation, one at the beginning. Psychologists did a study, and they found something with the human being called primacy-recency effect. What is the primacy-recency effect? Primacy and recency effect says that the majority of the audience in any of the conferences, they will remember only 2 things, 2 parts of the presentation. Hopefully you will remember all of it, but they will remember only 2 parts. The introduction of the presentation and the ending of the presentation. At the middle, it's gone, disappeared. Hopefully it's not with you. And this, the psychologists say, primacy and recency effect. I will come to the 3rd question to conclude my presentation. What is the top 2 elements which it supports the success, prosperity of the healthcare services in each single country? 2 main elements. Do you know what's that 2? Very easy. Who could answer my question to conclude my presentation? 2 main elements. It's a major support for the improvements of healthcare services. Whenever I say healthcare, pharma is a part of it. Sorry? Excellent. That's part of the question, part of the answer. Excellent. 2 main. The first one, we call it intersectoral collaboration. We as a government cannot work alone. You as a private, you cannot work alone. Semi-government cannot work alone. We are one family, one hand, one program, one leadership. You need to have new innovations in your healthcare services. You need to support the innovations to be enrolled at your healthcare services. Otherwise, you cannot succeed. Public-private partnership, as I said, Cleveland Clinic, Seoul National University Hospital, Mayo Clinic, Global Health. And examples. This is one of the examples, CPhI. We signed an MOU with them for 5 years, is it or not? They will be based in Abu Dhabi, this beautiful country, the capital of United Arab Emirates. Regulations. As I showed you, strong regulations will support your presence here and your investment. And then, how we as a government supporting the local pharma industry. I gave you some of the examples. And then accelerated pharma facilities, drug registration. One of the leaders, one of the chairmen of the pharma, international pharma companies said to my minister, he said, sir, he was talking to my minister, I was there, I don't want to mention the name. He said, we are registering our drugs in your country in 2 months. But we are registering the same drug in the neighboring countries and in the region, sometimes 6 months, but some countries 2 years. Imagine, Your Excellency, the minister, despite the goodness for the patients that they have an access to the most innovative drugs for the treatment of their illnesses, how much I'm gaining as a chairman of the company as an investment in your country, and from your country, the pathway to the rest of the countries, 41 countries. He said to my minister, I thank you, Your Excellency. And that's the accelerated drug registration is a part of it. Research and development, you have to support that. You need a regulation for that. You cannot allow the R&D without a regulation, by the way. If it's not regulated, you cannot. Then you would put the patients at risk, or even yourself and the companies at risk. World-class healthcare services. As I said, 86% of our governmental and private hospitals are accredited internationally. And although I kept it here at the end, but that's number one. It's the patient-centered care. In JCI or in the Australian or Canadian accreditation says patient safety, it's a top priority for the accreditation. And there, I will say here, patient-centered care. Therefore, the intersectoral collaboration of all those 8 elements together, it's the top element for the success of any of the countries at the field of healthcare services as an example, and at other sectors. Number 2, which I'm so proud to announce and say, is this leadership. Thank you very much. I'm ready for the questions.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Amiri. And we do have time for a couple questions. We have a microphone available as well. Any questions for the Excellency? Go.
Oh. Thank you, Dr. Amin, for this good presentation. You give us a good idea about the healthcare sector in UAE, but I want to ask you something about the fast registration of the newly innovated drugs. In my opinion, I don't know, who will be the first part to face the pharmacovigilance effect, because I think if we register it after a certain period of time, we will avoid some of the pharmacovigilance effect.
Thank you. I remember 3 years back, there was a medical forum in Dubai, led by His Excellency Hamid Al-Ghatami, the chairman of, the chairman of the Dubai Health Authority, and there were 3 ministers there, Minister of Health from Oman, Saudi Arabia, and His Excellency, my minister. I was giving a speech, and this question came to me from a member, one of the big leaders from one of the GCC countries. She told me, I mean, you are taking risk to register the innovative drugs after the approval of FDA as a first or second country. Therefore, give it time, 6 months, 1 year. Make sure that no recall of those drugs, no PV, and then register it. I said the leadership, the most visionary leaders, taught us, and even our Prophet Muhammad, peace to be upon him, one thing: take responsibility, take action. Therefore, I should take a responsibility to provide to our patients the most innovative drugs to treat their illnesses. And I ask here a question. I will say, instead of responding to your question, I will ask a question. For last 20 years, how many drugs was withdrawn from the market 6 months later after the approval of FDA or EMA? None. None. I said, then why you are not allowing your patients to have an access to innovative drugs, and you are sitting at your office relaxing, and the patients are suffering? Your country is suffering. You don't support the medical tourism. You don't support the investment in your country. And the international companies, they don't come to you. You are not fast enough to support them. For the last 20 years, there was no single innovative drug which was withdrawn from the market after the approval of FDA or EMA. Then why I should wait? I shouldn't wait. And therefore, there is no risk. You don't need to worry. This question usually comes from the people which they are not strong leaders. The strong leaders like us, our leaders, they take strong decision, and therefore they succeeded. Thank you.
I want to commend you on a very excellent presentation. I've traveled the world and heard from many leaders of regulatory authorities, both in this part of the world, also in Latin America, Asia Pacific, and I have to say I've never heard a presentation such as you've just given.
I'm your younger brother.
But my question is, particularly in working in the Gulf region, because of the standard of things here in UAE, the way in which you review, the way in which you've set up so many excellent situations and systems, how can you then influence other Gulf regions to actually become like you or to reach that same standard? Because many of them are in a very different position, as you indicated earlier in your talk.
Thank you. Although this is a political question, but I will respond to it, don't worry. In fact, I'm so proud and so happy that some of the GCC countries really started very strongly to support the harmonization of the regulatory aspects together. You know that we started to have something called GCC, Gulf Cooperative Countries, since more than, I remember, 28 or 20 or 30 years. And we unified our policies. Although we as a UAE, we always take care of the new policies and new regulations and updating them every 2 years or every year sometimes. But I found that there's a beautiful competition between us and some of the GCC countries. And they're trying to copy what is being implemented in UAE. And that's very healthy, by the way. You know, it's good to see what's happening in France or UK or Germany or United States of America or Australia or wherever, any of those countries, and to take the good part of what is being implemented and implemented here. I think sooner or later, mainly the GCC countries, we will be in the same position. Let me name just one of the countries which I'm so proud of always, Saudi Arabia. They are doing a great job. I do admire the chairman of Saudi SFDA, Dr. Hisham Al-Dhal'i. It's not because he's my close friend, but really he's doing a great job. And I think Saudi Arabia, almost we together on the same level, by the way. The rest of the countries are doing their best, but sooner or later. But hopefully the rest of the countries in the region, maybe they can't do that due to the political situation, internal political situation, which those political situations has a negative impact on the healthcare services, in economics, on the social affairs, in many aspects, in the industry, in the presence of the foreign companies. I mean, let me conclude my answer to your question in one thing. If you have leaders in your country, wherever you are, and you have part of the leaders, the inhabitants, the nationals in your country, they love their country and they give their soul and their life for their country, and they work 24 hours for the sake of their country and for the sake of the inhabitants of that country, you will succeed. You need to have those two people. You need to copy and do cloning of Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid and Mohammed bin Zayed. Thank you.
Sorry.
No problem.
So much. We have to move on, sorry. Okay.
Which it means the psychologist research is not correct.
For me, maybe. But definitely the point which you highlighted about the internet and the technology which Ministry of Health has adopted, I, being a local manufacturer, has been a beneficiary of this advanced technology. And I just want to, it's not a question, but one of the recommendation is that moving forward, the way the networking technology works, if the Ministry of Health and Prevention can be interconnected with the other regulatory authorities, such as Dubai Customs, that would even further expedite a number of processes which we interact, because sometimes we receive products which are temperature sensitive and we want an expedited clearances. And sometimes the Ministry of Health do provide electronic clearance, but the customs still requires a manual work, and that delays the process. So it's just a recommendation if it can be extended. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I mean, this has been taken into consideration since last 3 years. We signed an MOU with the 4 of economic departments, which the licensing is now outsourced to the local economic departments for the renewal and the registration. We signed an MOU with 4 free zones, and where you are one of it. And we I think on Sunday with electronic for the precursors and the psychotropics with the Ministry of Interior. We had almost a new program since March this year, the electronic electronic drug registration for the controls, semi-controls, drugs with the Ministry of Interior. And we have many on the pipeline, but I think with customers and with Dubai Custom, they are working together, and Abu Dhabi Custom, but that's a good suggestion, although it's with the Department of Drug, but for sure, I will make sure that this will be accomplished hopefully by this year, inshallah. Thank you very much. Thank you.